Morning, it's 10 o'clock and General Counsel, is there a quorum?
Madam Chair, you do have a quorum.
Thank you. So I will call to order the October 2022 meeting of the IHCDA Board of Directors. And we're meeting pursuant to the board's policy for participation by members of the IHCDA Board of Directors in board meetings by simultaneous electronic communication. This means that only 3 members must be physically present at the site of the meeting. The remaining members may call in. There will be an audio feed for the general public so that members of the public can listen to the meeting, and there will be a link to the video recording posted on IHCDA's website next month. At the time that motions are being made, each board member that makes a motion must state his or her first and last name for the record. The votes will then be tallied by roll call. I will now take a roll call of the board members to confirm which members are present. Suzanne Crouch, Lieutenant Governor, is present. Mark Pasquarelli.
Present, here.
Wonderful. Let's see here. Treasurer Kelly Mitchell.
Here.
Board member June Midkiff.
Here.
Present by virtually. Andy Place.
Here.
Andy is here with us virtually. Michael Schottmeyer.
Present.
Thank you. And Tom McGowan.
Present.
Wonderful. Our first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the September 22nd, 2022 board meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Mark Pasquarelli, so moved.
Thank you.
Tom McGowan, second.
It has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Oh, I'm sorry. I got to do it. Okay. Here we go.
I just had to do this yesterday. It takes a lot of time.
Susan Crouch votes aye. Mark Pasquarella.
Aye.
Kelly Mitchell.
Aye.
June Midkiff.
Aye.
Thank you. Andy Place.
Aye.
Thank you. Michael Schottmeyer.
Aye.
Thank you. And Tom McGowan.
Aye.
The board minutes have been approved unanimously. The next item on our agenda is the Habitat Indiana Home Investment Fund second investment. And we have with us presenting, is it Sid? Seth.
Sid's going to present.
Oh, sorry.
That's going to get.
Yes. Okay.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is regarding the request for development fund grant of $510,000 for Habitat for Humanity of Indiana's Home Investment Fund. As we all know, Habitat of Indiana fills a critical niche by providing affordable single-family homes at 0% interest mortgage to low-income Hoosiers in the 30% to 80% AMI. Through a network of 48 affiliates serving 67 counties. And to date, Habitat of Indiana has built 6,500 homes for low-income Hoosiers. In 2015, Habitat Indiana and IHCDA partnered to create the Habitat Indiana Home Investment Fund through a development fund grant of $1,050,000. The program provided a combination of grants and revolving microloans to each home funded. A total of $17,000 was invested in each home. $2,000 of that went to cover administrative expenses, and the other $15,000 was split 50-50 between a $7,500 grant and a $7,500 revolving microloan. The revolving microloans were paid off by the borrower over 2 years, and the money went back into the fund to make further combinations of grants and microloans. It was a very successful program. Through it, we were able to build 101 homes across the state of Indiana, 31 in rural communities and 70 in urban communities. 19 of the homes were in the southern region, 38 in central region, and 44 in the northern region. An added benefit of this program was that a lot of the affiliates that were not used to some of the design standards that IHCD generally mandates around accessibility and around energy efficiency. Through this program, they got familiarized with those design standards as well. And going forward, not only have they been able to use these design standards in the homes funded through this program, but other Habitat homes as well. So that's been an upgrade in the design standards for a lot of affiliates. Another added benefit of this program was that the amount of money that gets contributed through this fund just accounts for 12% of the total cost of development for the house. And 83% or so comes from cash donations, and the balance 5% or so comes from in-kind donations. So again, we get a real good bang for our buck through the seed money that is provided through this program. So again, it's been very beneficial from that perspective. So again, due to the massive success of this program and the fact that we have an ever-increasing need of single-family homes that are affordable in the state of Indiana, Habitat wanted to kind of continue with this program and requested seed money of another $510,000 to keep this program going. The one challenge that has presented itself over the last year or so has been the increased construction costs that we have. And because of that, the typical Habitat home is $20,000 to $25,000 more to build than it was before. So because of that, Habitat does not want to pass on all of those increased costs to the homeowners. Because of that, they want to change the mix of the program. They want to change it to $10,000 grant and $5,000 loan instead of the $7,500 grant and $7,500 loan. And they feel that'd be very beneficial to the low-income homeowners that are benefiting from this program. As part of this new program, Habitat is also committing to raise $3.5 million in cash donations and around $250,000 in in-kind donations. And any money that they're not able to raise as part of this commitment, a proportionate amount of our funding would get deobligated as well. So that will hold them obviously accountable to achieve those targets. And reality is that last year, despite all the challenges, Habitat of Indiana was able to raise $38 million. So the $3.5 million cash donations that they want to raise through this program, it seems very achievable. Some of the requirements that IHCDA is going to place as part of this funding would be half the funds will be subscribed in year one. 100% of the families will be between 30% to 80% of the AMI. Funds will be distributed diversely among the north, central, and southern regions. 100% of the units will be energy efficient with a HERS rating of 75 or less. And 100% of the units will meet the accessibility standards of visitability. We will also require them to provide us quarterly reporting, which covers a lot of different aspects, including, again, the number of people in the household, the race and ethnicity of the head of the household, the gender of the household income, the appraised value of the property, the date of completion, and this is a first-time home buyer, and some of the metrics around that as well. Those will be provided on a quarterly basis for all the houses that we funded through this program. So based on all of that, based on the prior success of this program and the cost versus benefit that this program achieves, staff recommends requests that this funding be approved.
Board, any questions?
One
Yeah.
quick question. So I assume the 510,000 would be subject to them delivering 42. So they couldn't come back and say, hey, we can only do 35. It would have to be that number in order for
So we
you.
do quick checks and balances regarding that. The money from this fund is the last money in. So they have to provide a certificate of occupancy as well as proof of expenditures before these amounts get dispersed. So they have to meet those targets before the money gets
So on a
dispersed.
per unit basis, it's not a huge number, but a very helpful number.
Yes.
Yeah, got it.
Excuse me, any additional questions? Before we hear your resolution, perhaps we could get an update from Beth Ressler, Director of Operations for Habitat. Would that be appropriate?
Happy to jump in. We've got a little bit left in from that first infusion for about 10 units that are all promised through the end of the year. So we've still got enough revolved money from the first infusion that we're still funding houses, but obviously this is near the end of it. So we also just had a huge partnership with IHCDA for a major loan sale it closed this past week. Where they were able to offer $1 million loan guarantee. So we were able to get a huge infusion of cash for our affiliates as well. So we appreciate your partnership immensely and be very good stewards of the money. I can promise you that.
Any questions for Beth?
Yeah, and
yes, it's probably to you. How is the Habitat keeping up with the need? Like, is there a long wait list or, yes?
Good question. It's very difficult. We were building about 297, almost 300 units a year pre-pandemic, and now we're down to 150. So you can only imagine with obviously increased need that we're just, it's impossible to meet with the current cost of building and the current appraisal prices. We sell at appraised value, and we never give the homeowner more than they can afford mortgage wise. So it means we have to subsidize the difference. So we're having to subsidize at way larger rates than we were previously, which means we just can't build as much. But as he stated, it's not a reflection on our ability to raise money. It's just a reflection of the increased cost.
Hopefully these costs will start to calm down in the second half
Yeah.
of 23.
I really
I think they will.
Was that 38 million you said? Is that
Yeah,
about
so
that?
in 2021, there is.
In Indiana?
Yeah, in the state
Wow.
of Indiana, yeah, through cash donations.
Yeah.
Obviously, in-kind donations are something.
Oh, okay. So even above the 38 million, there are in-kind donations.
Yep, we get appliances donated, we get roofs, all sorts of stuff. Obviously volunteer labor, that's the way we can keep a lot of the costs down, so. Huge.
And the way the structure is that each house gets a house sponsor, and obviously a lot of big corporations, including and endowments, including Linney, IU Health, Veteran, Ball State Foundation. A lot of those folks sponsor individual houses. So a lot of the cash donation as well as volunteer labor that comes from those corporations. And it's not just the bigger corporations, but in rural areas, smaller businesses and churches who contribute. So all of that really does add up.
Any additional questions for Steph or Beth? Thank you, Beth, and I think we're ready for your resolution.
Okay, so, yes, so staff recommends the allocation of 510,000 in development fund in the form of a grant to Habitat for Humanity of Indiana for the creation of Habitat Development Loan Fund.
Board, we have a resolution before us. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Move for approval, Kelly Mitchell.
Thank you.
Second, Andy Place.
Thank you, Andy. It's been moved and seconded. I will take the roll. Lieutenant Governor Crouch votes yes. Mark Pascarella.
Aye.
Kelly Mitchell.
Aye.
June Midkiff.
Aye.
Thank you. Andy Place.
Aye.
Thank you. Mike Chopmar
Yes.
and Tom McGowan.
Aye.
The motion is approved. Thank you, Steph.
Thank you.
All right, please welcome Alan Murkowski, who will now present the TCAP monthly update.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Alan Murkowski, Director of Real Estate Allocation. Here today to give the monthly TCAP update, through which delegated authority was granted to IHCDA in September of 2021 and recently extended last month through March 24th, 2023. The following award was made after the last board meeting to a tax credit deal that had a financing gap due to cost increases. That project is Pebble Village Townhomes in Noblesville. Developer is Wilder Cooper Developments. It's a new construction deal, and $500,000 of TCAP was awarded on October 13th. This was a 2021 tax credit award. That brings the total number of approvals since the program started to 25 projects totaling $9,960,411. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, board? Thank you, Alan.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Please welcome Megan Bauman, who will present the bond volume 4% tax credits for Broadway Park and Citizens Park Apartments. Good morning.
Morning, thank you. Broadway Park and Citizens Park will be the final award of the 2022 A/B bond round. And the project represents a total development cost of just under 25 million. They're requesting 12,477,438 in bond volume and 889,795 in annual lights at 20 years. The deal is comprised of two different sites. They're in the Midtown area of Indianapolis here. Broadway Park is located at 38th and Broadway, and Citizens Park is located at 22nd and College. The development will consist of 78 units targeting individuals and families earning up to 60% of the area median income. And the developer, Circle City Property Management and Development, has partnered with the City of Indianapolis, INHP, the Indianapolis Urban League, and several other stakeholders, really to bring this to fruition. And I do want to acknowledge Eric Armstrong is here. I encourage you to meet him afterwards and become acquainted. He is the president of CCPMD. Both sites are being constructed on vacant or blighted land within central Indianapolis in the transit corridor, just steps from the red line and future purple lines. Broadway Park will consist of 2 new buildings with 40 units in total and retail and commercial space on the first floor. And then Citizens Park will consist of 1 3-story building with 38 units, covered parking and multiple universal design features detailed in Exhibit A. If you have any other questions, you can refer to that Exhibit A. I would be happy to state that we've reviewed the application in accordance with the 2022 round and the 2022 qualified allocation plan. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Board, any questions for Megan?
Just one real quick question. I'm trying to think of the site. So this would be south of 38, correct? And that would span between Broadway and Park? Is that, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
There's currently, I think, 3 buildings there, blighted buildings that we're going to demolish and then construct some.
That'll be a nice boost for that area.
Any additional questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Tom McGowan moves for approval.
Thank you.
June Midkiff.
We can give it to June.
June Midkiff, thank you.
You'll yield.
Great resolution.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, Megan, we're ready for your resolution.
All good. Resolved that the board approved awarding $12,477,438 in bond volume, $889,795 in annual low-income housing tax credits to VPCP LLC for Broadway Park and Citizens Park Apartments according to the terms of the 2022 AB application round as recommended by staff.
Thank you. Tom, would you like to move?
After much thought and consideration, I will continue to move for approval.
Thank you. June?
I will agree with that. I think.
It's been moved and seconded. Suzanne Crouch votes yes. Mark Pascarella?
Aye.
Kelly Mitchell?
Hi.
June Midkiff?
Aye.
Andy Plays?
Aye.
Mike Schotmar?
Aye.
And Tom McGowan?
Aye.
It's been approved. Thank you, Megan. Appreciate it. Please welcome Richard Harcourt, who will present the Tower Portfolio Project Bond Recommendation. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning, board. I'm not used to seeing you this early in the day.
Yeah.
So I have 2 projects that we're going to talk about. Both are projects that you all have approved in prior board meetings. And all we're really asking for in both of these is the authority to issue tax exempt debt to support the projects that, as I mentioned, have been approved. So the first one is the Tower Portfolio projects. You all approved this in September of 22, and you approved it in 2 different packages. The first was a $10.9 million multifamily scattered site rehab to include Petersburg, Princeton, and Mount Vernon. And the second piece of it was a $5.36 million senior rehab, again, scattered sites in Petersburg, Hopstadt, Owensville, and Princeton. And for purposes of this, those 2 have been combined to for one closing. So I'm seeking authority to issue $16,260,000 in tax exempt non-recourse bonds to finance this project.
Any questions for Richard? Not? Richard, we're ready for your resolution.
Resolved that the board approve the Series 2022 multifamily housing revenue bonds, parentheses, Tower Portfolio Project, close parentheses, pursuant to the resolution attached hereto as Exhibit A as recommended by staff.
Board, we have a resolution before us. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
As a resident of Southwest Indiana, I would move for approval.
Mark
Thank you.
Pascarella, second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Lieutenant Governor Crouch votes yes. Mark Pascarella?
Yes.
Kelly Mitchell,
Aye.
June Midkiff,
Yes.
Andy Place,
Yes.
Mike Shopmar,
Yes.
and Tom McGowan.
I'm supportive of Southwest Indiana. Aye.
Thank you. Richard, I think now you're going to present the Vita of New Whiteland Project bond recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project you all approved in July of '22. It's a 112 unit senior facility of assisted living and acute care. 25 million in total bond issuance, of which 21,405,000 will be the tax exempt portion of it. It's new construction. Board, I do apologize. One of the earlier copies that got out spoke to this as 110 unit. It really is 112 units. So with that, I will take questions.
Any questions for Richard? I believe we're ready for your resolution.
Thank you. Resolved that the board approved the Series 2022 multifamily housing revenue bonds, parentheses, Vita of New Whiteland Project, close parentheses, pursuant to the resolution attached hereto as Exhibit A and is recommended by staff.
Is there a motion for approval?
Move to approve. Mark Pascal.
Thank you.
Mike Shopmeyer, second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Lieutenant Governor Crouch votes yes. Mark Pascarella,
Aye.
Kelly Mitchell,
Aye.
June Midkiff,
Aye.
Andy Place,
Aye.
Michael Shopmar,
Aye.
and Tom McGowan.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. We will now hear from our executive director. Take us aside.
Yeah, Beth did a really nice job of providing an update on Habitat and some of the success they had. She touched on the guarantee that IHCDA has partnered with Habitat for Humanity on. And I'll just refresh your memory on this. Back in February of 2021, IHCDA provided $1 million to collateralize a guarantee for Habitat to sell $4 million of their mortgages that would generate capital for habitats across our state. And then, so that was $1 million for $4 million guaranteed. Working with Old National Bank, they came back and this week again, they purchased another $7 million of first mortgages from Habitat. So our guarantee is still there at $1 million. However, that $1 million has generated over $11 million of capital for Habitat for Humanity, and that will be used across our state. So we're really excited and really proud of the partnership that we have with Habitat and with Old National Bank and being able to generate this infusion of cash for our Habitat affiliates across our state. So as of today, we haven't had any claims against the guarantee. There hasn't been any defaults or anything like that. So the homes are performing well within that portfolio that we've had a guarantee on. So yeah, and I can continue to update the board on that progress. So yeah, we're just really proud about that. The other couple updates I want to give, there's a couple of housing task force that are taking place currently. Each one I'm on, and I just want to give you a quick update. The Indiana Housing Task Force is co-chaired by Representative Doug Miller and Senator Linda Rogers. They have a report that's due to the governor by next week, November 1st. And they're providing an overall comprehensive view of the housing needs across our state. At the first meeting on September 29th, I presented what IHCDA's role is as a state housing finance agency for our state. I also discussed the Indiana Housing Dashboard, which we launched earlier this year, that really provides a one website where you can pull a lot of the housing data across our state. And so I hit on a couple of key data points, and I'll share a couple of those with you. If you remember, the housing dashboard lays out 4 areas. Basically, it looks at population, housing stock, housing affordability, and jobs. And you can drill down at the county level. You can pull a housing needs assessment, which is about 38 pages, or you can pull one for the entire state. So I looked at it from the entire state. Our population, if you look at the population piece, 45% of our population, 65 and older, have a disability. So we talked about, Sid mentioned our partnership with Habitat in providing accessibility and visibility design features really, really important that we continue that as we recognize that our population does have physical disabilities in terms of being able to live in the home of their choice. So our housing stock, it is older. 45% of our homes were built prior to 1970. So we have an aging housing stock as well. Housing affordability, and I should mention, when you look at the housing affordability, we really don't have a lot of the current data related to the pandemic. So this data is really from, it stops around 2019, 2020. So we know we have rising interest rates, rising construction costs, rising job data in terms of costs for talent. So all those pieces are not really taken into account here. But even with that being said, we've seen a 15% increase since 2010 on the median rent for home prices. For single family home prices, we've seen a 15% increase. When you look at median rents since 2011, we've seen a 20% increase. And again, I say that without what we've been experiencing with inflation over the last 18 months. So those numbers would be even higher as we look at the percentages. So housing affordability is obviously a challenge for us. We look at jobs. This is really where I think we really start to feel some of this pain points within housing and housing affordability and access and inventory that we hear so much about from the realtors and the builders across our state. You know, in Indiana, from 2011 to 2019, we've done just an outstanding job of creating jobs. We've created over 350,000 jobs. However, when you compare that to housing production, which is 159,000, that's where we're starting to feel this pain point. On average, we're creating 45 units of housing for every 100 jobs that we create. And that's just housing. That's not affordable housing. That's just across the board. And that's home ownership and rental. So when you look at that, we're ranked 13th in the country in building leased housing relative to job growth from 2010 to 2020. And so that's where one of the reasons why we're really starting to see this housing pinch that we have. We're creating jobs, housing production is lagging behind. And then if you look at us and you compare us to the other states, like Ohio is kind of really similar to us. They're ranked 14th. We are the lowest ranked state in the Midwest in terms of housing production relative to job production. Michigan's 15th. Illinois is 30th. And it's interesting because they have a much lower job production. That's the reason why they're in a better, when you look at the rankings, they're ranked 30th, but it's not because of housing production. It's actually, they're low on job production. Kentucky is ranked 27th, very similar there, lower production in terms of jobs. So that is an area where I think, and a key data point that we need to continue to focus in on is trying to balance that job growth versus housing growth as well. So those are the things that we're working on in the housing task force. And there's been a lot of positive conversations and recognitions of the need for affordable housing, as we also talk about housing for rental and home ownership, and some other key areas too, in terms of infrastructure. Has been a big conversation in terms of building out infrastructure to support the new construction as well. So the other task force I'm on is co-chaired with Tom McGowan and Jeff Bennett. That's a low barrier homeless shelter task force. And we have a report that's due by the end of the year on the homeless shelter task force. And it's really looking at developing a plan for a low barrier homeless shelter facility here in Indianapolis that could be replicated across our state for other communities to have. It's really focused on creating a hub, what we've kind of been calling it, a hub that would provide wraparound services for chronic medical conditions, mental health, substance use disorder, and life skills, or a combination of all of those together. It would also include a low barrier shelter, a day center, and what I think is called housing pods. Because in Indianapolis, these housing pods would allow individuals to stay while waiting for their housing. In many cases, individuals are living in or staying in homeless shelters because the rental assistance that's available to them won't be available immediately. And in Indianapolis, it's taking over 106 days on average through the tenant-based housing choice voucher program to get that referral to lease up. So that's how long it's taking to someone who has been promised a rental assistance. It takes them almost over 100 days to even get that rental assistance and move into their unit. So there's a need for what we call a housing pod for someone to stay in a place where they can get services, but also wait for that unit to become available to them.
Another word would be interim housing.
Could be another one, yes. So we've looked at, we've had Tom has brought in, and Jeff have brought in a couple of guest speakers. One of the models that is looking is the, in Lafayette, has a very similar model that IHCDA had partnered with and went through the Indiana Permanent Supportive Housing Institute and opened just months before the pandemic in 2020 hit. So it's been a very successful model that, again, I think we're looking at and trying to also identify opportunities where we can enhance it, but also replicate it in other communities as well. We know we have a need for low barrier homeless shelters across our state that also provide these wraparound services that provides that permanent supportive housing and some of these other day centers as well. So those are just the two updates on the two housing task force that I'm on right now. So.
Excuse me, what kind of metrics are in place in Lafayette? Because I remember going up to groundbreaking. What kind of metrics are in place to determine whether that model is really being successful in helping those individuals, become healthy, productive members of society?
Yeah, well, there were a few that they brought up. One was recidivism, reducing the number of individuals that are coming out of incarceration and providing them with the permanent housing. I think that was one area that they were looking at ensuring that individuals had they had numbers related to just some of the normal life skills that we would take for granted, like, for example, having a birth certificate. A lot of folks at the facilities don't have birth certificates, don't even have information, documentation that would allow them to apply for some of these services. So getting them connected to those services and providing them with the information they need to qualify for the services. I think that was another area that they were looking at in terms of for that. I know that they were looking at us, they were also evaluating how long they were staying at the facility from a low barrier shelter, trying to reduce the amount of time that it would take from someone who could get rental assistance to get them into permanent housing with another one too as well. I don't have the data in front of me, but Jennifer Layton from Lafayette was at the board meeting, was at the task force meeting yesterday actually, and sharing some of that with us. And I couldn't get that information. In fact, I think we asked her that same question.
Yeah, I requested a whole lot of information from Jennifer. I have also been to Lafayette. We had a group that included Deputy Chief of IMPD, a large group that we went. And so that's a strong model for us. I think we can do it a lot better. But what ultimately happens is they need more affordable housing in Lafayette. They don't have enough beds to take these people out of this facility into permanent. And if you think about just, and this is a little commercial on the governor's commission, but if you think about Indianapolis right now, just kind of in the core area, there's 500 or 600 people waiting for affordable housing that we need to get people into housing. And so then when you have Department of Corrections and other people bringing people out, it gets to be a big number. So I think one of the things, and Jake knows this, as part of the commission, we really want to figure out how can we help accelerate affordable housing. And that may include looking at ways to, in a tough environment, trying to promote more affordable housing through developers, programs, et cetera, because it's tough. I mean, you understand how tough it is based upon your numbers going from 220 to 150. And, mortgage rates just capped at 7% today. So we're going to need to figure this issue out in Indiana and every state in the country. It's not just Indiana. How do we get more affordable housing out into the market? Because we've got to figure that out as well.
One of the other areas that they had was they had rental assistance, but they need to have landlords who are willing to participate. And so tracking that number of landlords that are participating, because some of these folks have some, checkered past. And so making sure that they have those services around them to address some of these challenges that they have with it. And then have landlords that understand that situation and understand that the rental assistance is going along with these folks. That was one of the other metrics that they were really closely monitoring, was how do we get more landlords to participate. So.
It's tough.
Because, in Indiana, really, that is our affordable housing. I know our IHCDA is looked at as the leader, but the reality is, especially when we look at our emergency rental assistance program, the rents that are being charged are affordable in most of our state. And really, they're naturally occurring affordable housing. They don't have lien and restricted covenants on them like IHCDA places on their properties like we do. So really, the large number of affordable housing in our state is really what I call kind of our mom and pops, just small folks who have just a couple of units and are leasing those units, duplexes, triplexes, single-family homes. That is a large number, probably the predominant number of affordable housing in our state. It's really not IHCDA. While we still need to continue to try to figure out ways to increase that supply, we need to engage our landlords across our state to make sure that they understand, the benefits of providing housing for someone who has rental assistance, because it's a choice that they get to make. So,
because you do not want your most needy and difficult population to not have housing. That obviously creates lots of problems in downtown Indianapolis and in every community throughout the state. So we got to figure that out.
And it is much more expensive too. Obviously, if someone's getting medical services through an emergency room is, 10 times more expensive if we could just provide that service on site at one of our properties where that can receive that same service, medical, mental health, or whatever it might be, that service is provided in a controlled environment, professionals, where they're living. It's a lot cheaper on us as look at it through that lens as well.
So last point on that, if you see a person on the street and you think about what it takes the system, whether it be IMPD runs, ambulance runs, just this whole continuum of what it takes to support a homeless person on the street, it's around $35,000 per person. You can imagine that you can house someone a hell of a lot cheaper than $35,000 through these various programs. So there's just a lot of work that has to be done, and some of it's going to have to be done in the State House. So,
with that being said, I do want to compliment our team at IHCDA. We are the lead applicant on the continuum of care. I know Emily and Kristen, I see Emily back there. They have been working, the continuum of care in Indiana has its own separate board of directors. And they have, for the first time, been working really hard with our team to develop a strategic plan to take on a lot of through the continuum of care, some of the infrastructure challenges that we have, also the funding that's very highly competitive when we apply to HUD. But in Indiana, we haven't had a really good, solid strategic plan that laid out real strategies and goals. And with our team, we've been working with the continuum of care board of directors, and this represents 91 counties. It doesn't include Marion County, it's the 91 counties. And I just want to compliment the COC board of directors for their leadership and really pulling together a really positive plan that they're going to be taking to the board in November for approval. And then also our team for really helping coordinate and making sure that we have a good plan that we can actually implement and have really good goals in place. So I'm happy to have one of our team members or the COC board member come and maybe present a little update on what that looks like when that's been finalized.
that's big.
Yeah. Just lastly, November 17th is our next board meeting. It'll be here at 30 South Meridian, and also we'll offer the virtual option as well. So that's my update.
Any questions for Jay? Any further business to come before the board at this time?
Sure, I have a brief statement. I'll be sending around those two resolutions for signature. What I'd like to ask the board is, going forward, would you be okay with me bringing those documents in and having those ready to sign? So that you can sign while you're here, and then for those who are not here, I can send those through Adobe Sign. That way I only have 2 going through, or maybe 3 going through Adobe Sign versus 7 or 8. Is that okay? Yeah. Excellent. That's what I'll be doing in the future. So I'll be asking you to stick around a little bit and sign them afterward. Thank you.
Okay. Any further business? I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Can we just do this by,
Yeah, it's not required, so you can do it however you want to do
all
it.
right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Great job by the IHCDA staff. You guys are doing great things.